with the sheets you've got the three main ones: a lump of foam by way of the six sense spaces, empty is the world, and I also added the two Nibbana elements, which you don't have. But what I'll do is I'll go through it quite slowly, and I'll make sure that you've got opportunity to give your personal insights before I rob you. Okay, so a lump of foam. So what I'll do as I go through a passage, a major paragraph, I'll just check you, and you just tell me if you have any personal views or opinions. Don't be shy. Just tell me exactly what you think. And after we've gone through, if there's anything that you've realised that I haven't, I'll add it to the collection. Yeah, to you. So for just let. Yeah, exactly. Okay. So what we're looking at is we're going through the volume In the Buddhist Words, and page 343. There's three major beginning sections there. A lump of foam by way of the six sense bases, and empty is the world. And that's empty of this world is 347, and also the two Nibbana Elements, which is 366, which the group here don't have, and a handful of leaves, 360. So I added those two just in case the first three didn't sort of provoke people's intellectuals to an incredible degree. Okay, so a lump of foam. On one occasion, the Blessed One was dwelling at a ojar on the bank of the river Ganges. There the Blessed One addressed the monks thus: "Monks, suppose that this river Ganges was carrying along a great lump of foam. A man with good sight would inspect it, ponder it, and carefully investigate it, and it would appear to him to be void, hollow, insubstantial. For what substance could there be in a lump of foam? So too, monks, whatever kind of form there is, whether past, future or present, internal or external, gross or subtle, inferior or inferior, far or near, a monk inspects it, ponders it and carefully investigates it, and it would appear to him to be void, hollow, insubstantial. For what substance could there be in foam?" In form. So, no opinion. So, as many of you understand, so what the Buddha is aiming at here. So, he's gone through many of the major categories, with sense experience, internal, external, all the categories you can possibly think of, and the practitioner. Through the process of vipassana, insight practice, which can take a number of modes, has to investigate their phenomenal experience, because as all of you are aware, that especially on the level of meditation, that you actually have to actively investigate the Dhamma. And it's all very, very nice to meditate, and you may get some intuitive insights arising in the practice, but you actually have to put forth correct effort in the mode of investigation, and especially on the three characteristics, which most of you are quite familiar with: anicca, dukkha, anatta. And the purpose of the three characteristics investigation essentially is to really maximise the disenchantment, the disinterest, the letting go of like phenomena, essentially, but in your personal framework. Because as long as like any of us are actually attached to anything, either say internally inside this mind, this body, or outside in anywhere within the range of the universe, that will actually be say like a seed to bring you back in the process of rebirth, even possibly at a very very high level, with these very fine or say more subtle attachments. Suppose, monks, that in the autumn when it is raining and big raindrops are falling, a water bubble arises and bursts on the surface of the water. A man with good sight would inspect it, ponder it, and carefully investigate it, and it would appear to him to be void, hollow, insubstantial. For what substance could there be in a water bubble? So too, monks, whatever kind of feeling there is, whether past, future or present, internal or external, gross or subtle, inferior or superior, far or near, a monk inspects it, ponders it, and carefully investigates it, and it would appear to him to be void, hollow, insubstantial. For what substance could there be in feeling? So when the Buddha said, and it would appear to the practitioner to be void, hollow, insubstantial. So, if a person's already at that level in that practice where they're already, getting quite significant insights. Now, if you actually, within your experience, if you actually see something as void, you experience it as void inside the mind, that can possibly be at a number of levels. It can be at the level of upachara samadhi. It could be at the level of, all 8 jhanas, before you reach Nirodha Samapatti. So, especially on the level of samadhi, you're looking at more and more refined levels of emptiness, voidness, in essence. And for anyone who has, a very significant experience with the 4 jhanas, will tell you that. If they, so for example, if they were a lay practitioner, or if they were chit-chatting with their monastic friends, that for an individual, so for a lay disciple who is able to reach the first jhana, that is the first level of that is the first true signpost for, say, voidness, emptiness. And as you move to the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, then the mind becomes more and more refined as you let the mental factors go. And people may feel that the first jhana is quite an incredible state within their personal experience, but as they deepen that meditation, refine those mental factors down, that sense of emptiness, voidness just keeps increasing in subtlety all the way up to the 8th jhana, and then the attainment of Nirodha Samapatti on the level of insight, the realization of the Nibbana element at the 4 stages. The realization of Nibbana is exactly the same at all 4 levels. Sotapanna up to Arahant, that state of ultimate voidness, emptiness. That's as deep as you can possibly go in the mind. So you get these quite subtle, profound states of voidness leading up to the ultimate sense of voidness, the Nibbana element, where there are no signs, there are absolutely nothing you can't use language and words to describe it, because of the profundity of the mental state. It's on a completely different level outside words and language. Suppose, monks, that in the last month of the hot season at high noon, a shimmering mirage appears. A man with good sight would inspect it, ponder it, and carefully investigate it, and it would appear to him to be void, hollow, insubstantial. For what substance could there be in a mirage? So too, monks, whatever kind of perception there is, whether past, future or present, internal or external, gross or subtle, inferior or superior, far or near, a monk or practitioner inspects it, ponders it, and carefully investigates it, and it would appear to him to be void, hollow, insubstantial. For what substance could there be in perception? So as the person, reaching that point where they're actually getting quite significant insights developing with their meditation. When the Buddha says, for what substance could there be in perception? So, when you look at the experience of perception in the mind, so for example, people who have very deep samadhi, which is very, 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 very sharp, very clear, very, very fast. You can actually see the mind process on a deep level, and you can actually, especially in the people who have easily, say, mastery of the first jhana, you actually see the mind process rising and falling. People who have the fourth jhana, that's when you take the mind to its peak of its power, and then you can actually see the khandhas rising and falling. Your mind is, even at that speed, that the incredible speed that the mind moves at, that the Buddha found difficulty to find a simile for. You have the ability to see the rise and fall of the five aggregates, actually inside the mind, inside your sphere of awareness. Suppose, monks, that a man needing heartwood, seeking heartwood, wandering in search of heartwood, would take a sharp axe and enter a forest. There he would see the trunk of a large banana tree, straight, fresh, without a fruit bud core. They would cut it down at the root, cut off the crown and unroll the coil. As they unroll the coil, they would not find even softwood, let alone heartwood. A person with good sight would inspect it, ponder it, and carefully investigate it, and it would appear to him, to them, to be void, hollow, insubstantial. For what substance could there be in the trunk of a banana tree? So too, monks, whatever kind of volitional formations there are, whether past, future or present, internal or external, gross or subtle, inferior or superior, far or near, a person inspects them, ponders them, carefully investigates them. As they investigate them, they appear to them to be void, hollow, insubstantial. For what substance could there be in volitional formations? Suppose, monks, that a magician or a magician's apprentice would display a magical illusion at a crossroad. A man with good sight would inspect it, ponder it, and carefully investigate it, and it would appear to him to be void, hollow, insubstantial. For what substance could there be in a magical illusion? So too, monks, whatever kind of consciousness there is, whether past, future or present, internal or external, gross or subtle, inferior or superior, far or near, a person inspects it, ponders it, and carefully investigates it, and it would appear to them to be void, hollow, insubstantial. For what substance could there be in consciousness? So this something just come up with another point here, and it would appear to them to be void, hollow, insubstantial. So those words, it would appear to them. It gives me the sense of the person is developing a gradual series of insights into one's experience. So, for example, it could be something like feeling. You develop a series of insights into the rise and fall of that particular khandha in different contexts. As feeling rises and falls in relation to different objects, different conditions, and there will be, say, subtleties in the insights that you get, but for the person who's actually gone right through to the core, they essentially when they reach the penetration of the Dhamma, that's when the insight knowledge, when we talk about, say, voidness or emptiness, person develops a series of fine and subtle insights, with whatever they're contemplating. But once they reach that point where you actually break through to the Nibbana element, that's when you really know voidness. You have a series of subtle insights, then there's full penetration at the most profound level, and that will be the insights arising that follow after the realization of both the cessation of feeling and perception, Nirodha Samapatti, and the insights which follow on, which arise from that very profound experience. Suppose, monks, that a magician or a magician's apprentice would display a magical illusion at crossroads. A man with good sight would inspect it, ponder it, and carefully investigate it, and it would appear to them to be void, hollow, insubstantial. For what substance could there be in a magical illusion? So too, monks, whatever kind of consciousness there is, whether past, future or present, internal or external, gross or subtle, inferior or superior, far or near, a person inspects, ponders it, carefully investigates it, and it would appear to them to be void, hollow, insubstantial. For what substance could there be in consciousness? So this reference for what substance could there be in consciousness, and there was a thought which came up in my mind in relation with one of the forest masters, that for example, the average practitioner, the average person, we're at the mercy of our feelings and perceptions. We don't always see things clearly. We don't. We jump to conclusions. We misinterpret things, and essentially it's because of our personal conditioning. Every single one of us, we have our personal karma. We have this conditioning process running back into hundreds, the way the Buddha explained it, hundreds of thousands of past lives. The beginningless point in this rebirth process in samsara. And so your consciousness is being conditioned through cause and effect, different mind states, views, opinions, all sorts of subtle mental nuances, like rising up in the mind, conditioned phenomena, and then it's going to alter the way that you see yourself, the way you see the world. So for the vast majority of us, we don't have any real clarity until we, get some. And if you really need really firm upachara samadhi as a minimum, no, you don't. As far as insight practice goes, you've got to have that. Every single one of the attained meditation teachers, Thailand, Burma. I'm not so sure about the Sri Lankan scene. They'll just tell you straight up. There's no anything which comes before that point. It's like garden variety insight. You may feel it's quite interesting. Has some real. Maybe some real, say, benefit to it. But if you're talking about the real thing, you've got to have at least upachara or the first jhana to get that crystal clear mind which sees your personal experience very, very clearly. Seeing thus, monks, the instructed noble disciple becomes disenchanted with form, disenchanted with feeling, disenchanted with perception, disenchanted with volitional formations, disenchanted with consciousness. Becoming disenchanted, they become dispassionate. Through dispassion, their mind is liberated. When it is liberated, there comes the knowledge. It's liberated. They understand thus, destroyed is birth, the spiritual life has been lived, what has to be done has been done. There's no more coming back to any state of being. So when that last phrase, the destroyed is birth, the spiritual life has been lived, what has to be done has been done, there's no more coming back to any state of being. Essentially that's the state of the arahant, because if the person makes a claim that the birth process, rebirth process is destroyed completely for them as a person, essentially they're attesting to the attainment of arahantship, where essentially they've completely cut off all the fetters, the 10 fetters in the mind, attachment to not only personal views, perceptions, but attachment to very deep and profound states of samadhi, like the fourth jhana, going right up to the eighth, and just absolutely all phenomena whatsoever, internal or external. But the way, so for example, this insight knowledge, it can be very, very subtle. There's been a number of monks in Thailand, probably possibly nuns, even lay practitioners maybe in the early days, who attained to an anagami, and because that state of mind of the anagami is the realization of the anagami state and the day-to-day experience of the anagami, that some people, if they don't actually, if they haven't been some of you are familiar with this, haven't been instructed beforehand, or if they haven't actually placed themselves under, or they have a connection with an arahant teacher for that final stage, quite a number of people fall for the anagami state as as actually completely finishing their spiritual work, because when you're at that level, you've destroyed the first 5 fetters, the lower fetters, and you've got the 5 higher fetters, which is attachment to form jhanas, attachment to formless jhanas, conceit, ignorance and restlessness. But those particular defilements in the mind of the anagami, they're incredibly subtle, and they're so refined that even for the anagami, that they don't necessarily see through it. It's just so incredibly just like refined. But until say for example, a person at the Arahant level will just see the average person, the average monk, even a person with good samadhi won't necessarily see it, because this is like real insight. It's really profound insight. The third and fourth stage, and only the person at the 4th stage really understands the mind of a person at the 3rd stage completely, because he's already moved through that stage, and he knows the obstacles, he knows the traps, and he knows the insight knowledge which actually arises from the both the anagami and the arahant experience. So he's got something to compare to, and you can see the difference. So the Ajahn Tate was a classic. He was an anagami for, I think it was close to 10 years, until he was sort of shaken up quite forcibly by Ajahn Mun, and also Tenachan Ma Bor for a short stage as well. And many of them, more than that, there's at least a handful of them got caught at this stage because of the incredible refinement of the mind. So moving on to the second section on 345, by way of the 6 sense bases. Monks, without directly knowing and fully understanding the all, without developing dispassion towards it and abandoning it, one is incapable of destroying suffering. And what, monks, is that all? Without directly knowing and fully understanding the I, without developing dispassion towards it and abandoning it, one is incapable of destroying suffering. Without directly knowing and fully understanding forms, eye consciousness, eye contact, whatever feelings arise with eye contact as condition, without developing dispassion towards it and abandoning it, one is incapable of destroying suffering. So you see this similar process there, the process of insight, where the practitioner has to investigate, at least within the 3 characteristics, but there's other little tricks, 4 elements: body contemplation, death, and even Longpo Tui said that you can attain to the level of a Sotapanna just with the death contemplation and nothing else. That will actually take you there. And supposedly he said that as an arahant when he was having tea with us, and I've heard that mentioned before. I wouldn't doubt that. So that last line, one is incapable of destroying suffering, because with that insight process, if you don't follow the insight process that the Buddha laid down within the different parameters that many of you are familiar with, both the 3 characteristics and the hard cookie practices, which are not necessarily are suitable for lay practitioners unless you feel comfortable with it. Some people can do the body practice and not even sweat. Some people, can almost get suicidal. It's just a little bit too heavy. So, that insight practice, both from the beginners through the intermediate to the advanced, and you've got to take it all the way right to the end. Right till you actually break through to the first level of enlightenment as a Sotapanna, until you are actually capable of destroying suffering. You've got to take it right to its depth, to its limit. Without directly knowing and fully understanding the ear, the mind, whatever feelings arise with mind contact as condition, without developing dispassion towards it, abandoning it, one is incapable of destroying suffering. This, monks, is the all. Without directly knowing and fully understanding this all, one is incapable of destroying suffering. monks, by directly knowing and fully understanding the all, by developing dispassion towards it and abandoning it, one is capable of destroying suffering. So this principle of dispassion, what does it actually, when you read in the context of the suttas, what does the Buddha mean by dispassion? So as many of you are aware, dis being the negative precept, negative prefix, lack of passion, dispassion, developing the lack of passion, and then the destruction of passion. So passion in the essence of, say, desire, clinging, the holding on to any kind of phenomenal experience. Because even like many of us, we all have our attachments. We all have our it could be subtle things, even like views, personal views, opinions, biases, whatnot. Material objects. All of us, including the monastics. We have little material objects that we're attached to. And but if you're really talking about the highest level of Dhamma, that essentially you've got to relinquish all that. Whoever's able to actually develop their practice and break through to the Sotapanna level, that to the average person, the Sotapanna is attached to virtually, hardly anything. The average person wouldn't, they may see them sort of, move in day-to-day life, and they would say that this person is fairly, fairly, like, they sort of exude this sort of degree of like freedom, non-attachment. They just move, very, very lightly in the world. They don't take things seriously. When there's problems and difficulties, or when their workload, when they've got to work, all day, 7:30 in the, they get up early, 4 a.m. They start working at 7 a.m. and they go right through 10, 11 o'clock at night. Do that for 2 or 3 weeks, it's just like nothing. They get tired, but it just doesn't blow them away, and virtually nothing blows them away. No matter what goes wrong in the monastery, no matter whatever happens here at Dharmaloka, it's just like nothing. You take care of business and you just move on. The sense of lightness, it's very, very tangible, and it covers everything. Even when your mum dies, you could lose your whole family. In a car accident, a plane crash, you wouldn't even sweat. This is the test of a Sotapanna, when things are very, very heavy, when there's major issues. How personal does that person take it? How affected do they get when there's real stress, when the pressure's on? And what, monks, is that all? By directly knowing and fully understanding the I, the mind, whatever feelings arise with mind contact as condition, by developing dispassion towards it and abandoning it, one is capable of destroying suffering. This, monks, is the all, by directly knowing and fully understanding which one is capable of destroying suffering. And we'll move on with our third section, Empties the World, on 347. Then the Venerable Ananda approached the Blessed One and said to him, Venerable Sir, it is said, empty is the world, empty is the world. In what way, Venerable Sir, is it said, empty is the world? It is, Ananda, because it is empty of self and what belongs to self, that it is said, empty is the world. And what is empty of self and of what belongs to self? The I, Ananda, is empty of self and of what belongs to self. Forms are empty of self and of what belongs to self. I consciousness is empty of self and what belongs to self. Eye contact is empty of self and what belongs to self. Whatever feeling arises with mind contact as condition, whether pleasant or painful, or neither painful nor pleasant, that too is empty of self and of what belongs to self. Okay, no takers. Okay, so with the so as many of you are aware that this process of developing the emptiness, the perception of emptiness and the non-attachment to both the internal and external phenomena. When, as many of you understand, that especially in the meditation process, when you're, what you're essentially aiming for is like an emptying out of the mind. That if your practice is balanced, if you're both on the samadhi side, the vipassana side, as the months and years go by, developing your meditation, which is absolutely crucial. The other foundation principles are quite important, but the meditation, it's really, really important. People don't go; they only get so far with foundation principles, which can be very, very, very solid and meaningful and very wholesome. But for people aiming for the goal, you have to, essentially, you should try to meditate. Every single day, and whenever you have time, you can do meditation in a very, very spacious way. You can do it 18 hours a day, and develop background samadhi. But this principle of this first principle I came up with, as one develops the meditation and is slowly emptying out the mind and is developing just gradual state of non-attachment, to your experience, to people to a degree, maybe to the children, or it can be to anything. All of us have our significant and subtle attachments. So, as this process of eradicating, slowly wearing down the self that, as you look out from your personality, one's personality view into the world, that the less of you there is inside, the less substantial and the more empty that the world appears outside of you as you look out through your eyes, through your mind experience. So the more space you've got inside your mind, the more space and emptiness you will actually see, out there as you look out into your day-to-day experience and look out into the universe. And it was one night in the monastery. I was just looking up at I was at the back of the hall, just looking up into the night sky, and I wasn't that far from Ajahn Brahm's hut, and he was just passing by for whatever reason, and he made the comment that he said if you ever get into a second jhana and look up into the universe, it will completely blow your mind away, because the space is just so incredible, inside that in your mind, that when you look out in the universe, it's like there's nothing between you and the realization of the universe on a say like an intermediate level, maybe not on an ultimate level, because you're not enlightened yet, you're not possibly not an arahant. But the space in your mind is just so incredible that's what you see when you look out into the universe. It's like the boundaries of the universe are, it's like the boundaries have just like sort of dissolved to a degree. There may be there are limits within the mind, within this feeling of this perception of emptiness, but it will correlate directly to what you experience when you look out into the world or up into the night sky itself. And just that last line. It is Ananda, because it is empty of self and of what belongs to self, that it is said, empty is the world. So just that similar, especially the person at the Sotapanna level who's realised Nibbana element, realised the ultimate emptiness, and this is one of the major reasons why the level of attachment is just so weak, in their personal experience. They move through the world, with clinging to hardly anything whatsoever. So the two last one. What time are we looking at? 3:37. So what I'll do, I'll add these other two, the two Nibbana elements on 366 and a handful of leaves on page 360. So a handful of leaves. On one occasion, the Blessed One was dwelling at Kosambi in a Simsapa grove. Then the Blessed One took up a few simsapa leaves in his hand and addressed the monks thus, "What do you think, monks? Which is more numerous, these few leaves that I have taken up in my hand, or those in the grove overhead?" "Venerable Sir, the leaves that the Blessed One has taken up in his hand are few, but those in the grove ahead are numerous. So too, monks, the things that I have directly known but have not taught you are numerous, while the things I have taught you are few. And why, monks, have I not taught those many things? Because they are without benefit, irrelevant to the fundamentals of the spiritual life, and do not lead to disenchantment, to dispassion, to cessation, to peace, to direct knowledge, to enlightenment, to nibbana. Therefore I am not taught them." So this principle, many of you have read this sutra over previously. So what the Buddha is actually aiming for is the essential principles, teaching dhammas which are going to lead you from the beginner's level, right through to the intermediate and advanced, and actually to get you to break through, at least to the first level. Because as many of you are aware that excessive knowledge is not particularly useful, because you can look at it has a workable limit. It all depends what you're looking at, what you're involved in. But intellectual knowledge, especially, and even experiential knowledge, depending on what parameters and field we're talking about, it has a workable limit to just how useful it is and where it actually gets you. And the vast majority of you have got internet access. You see that very clearly. Person can hammer the internet, 16, 18 hours a day. They can do it 7 days a week for the rest of their life, but it won't necessarily get them very far at all. And it can take up a lot of time. It can actually strengthen personal views and opinions. It can give them just too much material to think about and get attached to. And for some people, and I've had disciples tell me that they won't even read because it just doesn't do their meditation any good whatsoever. Because as you read and you have the words reverberating in your mind, you're looking at this conditioning process, and you are conditioning your views and opinions in a general sense. When you're reading and studying outside of Dhamma, there may be things that you absorb which you may find quite useful, without a doubt, but probably easily, maybe 90% of the stuff that we learn, if you're talking about the development of the path and the realization of Dhamma, it may be quite useless. If it doesn't actually give rise to real tranquility inside, if it doesn't lead to an increase in the quality of the foundation principles that you're developing, it may be worth leaving alone. All this stuff, it's quite interesting and captivating, and but it's got like a workable limit. And what monks have I taught? I have taught this is suffering. I have taught this is the origin of suffering. I have taught this is the cessation of suffering. I have taught this is the way leading to the cessation of suffering. And why, monks, have I taught this? Because this is beneficial, relevant to the fundamentals of the spiritual life, and leads to disenchantment, to dispassion, to cessation, to peace, to direct knowledge, direct experiential knowledge, to enlightenment, to nibbana. Therefore I have taught this. Therefore, monks, an exertion should be made to understand. This is suffering, an exertion should be made to understand. This is the way leading to the cessation of suffering. So where the Buddha put the emphasis there on the Four Noble Truths, the realization of those four major insights into the Four Noble Truths in relation to, say, suffering, the suffering of actually being born and being caught up in this rebirth process in samsara. When you're looking at the ultimate level, that sutta that the Buddha expounded, I think it was the smaller, larger footprint of the elephant's footprint, where he said the Buddha said all the minor and major, say, insights and the dhammas are actually contained within the framework of the Four Noble Truths. I haven't read this one over for a while, I don't know the full detail. But when you're looking at the realization of the Four Noble Truths, essentially, you're looking at the attainment of stream entry right through to Anagami. So as you move through the course of your meditation, course of insight practice, that when you look at the 37 enlightenment factors, that you will comprehend the workability and the exactly how these Dharma elements work. So as the years go by, as the lifetimes go by, you're developing these underlying skills, these wholesome skills, that when you actually break through to the realization of the Four Noble Truths, that if somebody, you have the ability to sit down and you could explain the 37 enlightenment factors in very, very quite fine detail, because you've actually done it. You've actually seen it. Inside the mind, you've seen those factors develop and come to fruition. And also this principle of the realization of suffering. All of us are well aware of the Four Noble Truths, and for some people, they don't. Even some Buddhists, they don't necessarily like this, this kind of contemplation, and I don't like to think about suffering too much, and I don't want to think that my being in partnership and having my children, having a job that I love, I don't want to look at that like it's a state of say disease or a state of say like pain or unpleasantness, in the long term. But when the words that the Buddha uses, that in relation with the Four Noble Truths, that aspect of suffering, for the average individual, whether it's the lay disciple, monastic, everything that we experience, it essentially unsatisfactory, and it's just absolutely nothing. If you, for any of us, our normal worldly experience, the way, for example, the way the Forest Masters would explain it, anything that you experience in the world, even it could be even something like IV meth or heroin, it could be anything, any kind of recreational drug, supersensory experience. It's absolutely nothing compared to the first jhana, and that's when your practice really starts to roll. So just even from that point, we've got a firm foothold at the intermediate level with that experience of samadhi. You'll see very clearly that this world is just absolutely nothing by comparison. You may not be able to sustain that, but it is that the insights which arise after that, you automatically get half. The way the Forest Masters would explain it, you automatically get at least 5 or 6 major key insights which arise after you withdraw from that state of samadhi. It's just a normal process, and even then, that's not even until you actually actively investigate and sort of get your teeth into things and start really sort of digging away and trying to working things out and trying to sort of like penetrate different insights on the path. So I will, and also with this business of actually I'll move on to the two Nibbana elements on 366. So the two Nibbana elements, there are amongst these two Nibbana elements, what are the two? The Nibbana element with residue remaining and the Nibbana element without residue remaining. And what monks is the Nibbana element with residue remaining? Here a monk is an arahant, one whose taints are destroyed, who has lived a holy life, done what is to be done, laid down the burden, reached his own goal, utterly destroyed the fetters of existence, one completely liberated through final knowledge. However, his 5 sense faculties remain unimpaired. by which he still experiences what is agreeable and disagreeable, still feels pleasure and pain. It is the destruction of lust, hatred and delusion in them that is called the Nibbana element, with residue remaining. So what the Buddha's essentially stating there, that you're looking at a person at the level of an arahant. So for those people who've destroyed all the underlying defilements within the mind, within the parameters of greed, hatred, delusion, if you say you've done that, well, essentially you're stating that you're fully enlightened as an arahant, and naturally utterly destroyed the fetters of existence. And many of you are familiar with the 10 fetters. The first 3 attaining to the breakthrough at the Sotapanna stage, who the Sotapanna breaks through the first 3. Personality view, adherence to rites and rituals. Personality view, adherence to rites and rituals. Can't remember the third. Can one of you remember the third one? Hey? Doubt, skeptical doubt. Skeptical doubt that when we talk about skeptical doubt, that individual, as because they've actually broken through to the Dhamma at the Sotapanna level, there is absolutely no doubt in their mind of the full path from the beginners, intermediate through to the advanced level, the way the path is structured and the way you practice the path. So in order for, say for example, any of us who are very interested to attain to stream entry, if you're really, really serious about that, your teacher should be, should have attained that stage, should be a Sotapanna, because he or she knows the groundwork. They know exactly which way to go, what you should be doing, the way you balance your faculties, exactly how to work with the 37 enlightenment factors and any other supporting conditions that you have within your day-to-day practice. And with the experience, what is agreeable and disagreeable, they still feel pleasure and pain. So naturally, the arahant still has say sensory awareness. There's still that cause and effect process of as the way the Buddha explained, agreeable and disagreeable feeling arising. Say especially in the body, and essentially it should be in the mind as well, but there's actually non-attachment because at the level of the arahant, the self is completely destroyed. That even though you have this conditioned process, I'm only just using wordplay here, but because you have this conditioned process, cause and effect process, where supposedly pleasant and unpleasant feeling arises in the mind of the arahant, that there's actually no one that is attached to that. For the average person, there's no one actually in there that can actually attach to that phenomena. So the average person would naturally attach to the so the jhana states. The anagami is still attached to the 4 higher, the four arupa jhanas. Even though they're incredibly refined states of perception, the anagami still clings to them on a subtle level. And until the self is destroyed completely, then that individual, you're looking at within the mind of that individual, you're looking at just a pure state of awareness with the 5 khandhas actually, or the four mental khandhas rising and falling within that sphere of pure awareness. A lot of people can get into sort of a little bit of disputation over that particular point. What is the mind of the arahant? We had one of our monks years ago. He spent 2 years trying to work that one out, and in the end he just gave up, because even though he had quite a sharp intellect, he just couldn't work it out. It's beyond wordplay. It's beyond like knowledge. language, and the only way is through very deep, profound, especially meditative experience, until one actually breaks through. But even then, maybe as incredible as it is, that you can't explain that to other people. And what monks is the Nibbana element without residue remaining? Here a monk is an arahant, one completely liberated through final knowledge. For them, here in this very life, all that is felt, not being delighted in, will become cool right here. That monks is called the Nibbana element without residue remaining. These monks are the two Nibbana elements. So this did anyone have any points at all? Oh yeah. Very easily satisfied. Okay, so those words there, for them here in this very life, all that is felt, not being delighted in, will become cool right here. That monks is called the Nibbana element without residue remaining. So, as many of you understand, the Nibbana element with residue means that the person is alive and the physical body and the sense faculties are still intact. But when the person actually dies and the physical body is breaking up and the four mental aggregates which arise and fall in the mind of the arahant, essentially they disband. Those forces, those energies, feeling, perception, mental formation, consciousness, those energies actually disband in the mind of within that field of awareness inside the arahant. At the point of death. And when the Buddha said that it will become cool right here, that means everything, the full business, body, mind, any kind of sensory awareness is completely comes to an end. There's a complete cessation of all that, body and mind. And many years ago somebody asked, let's see now, let me think. Ajahn Dan from Wat Bunyawat in Chonburi province, Thailand. Where does the mind of the arahant go at death? And what he said, and these are the words that were translated from the disc or from the talk, was that the mind of the arahant, that state of pure awareness, the mind of the arahant, actually becomes one within the sphere of nibbana, the unconditioned. So if you're an arahant, and when you die, that awareness that you have inside of your mind, that ultimate emptiness, that ultimate voidness, just becomes essentially becomes one with the unconditioned. This is just wordplay. You can't really use words and language with these kind of propositions. But in essence, he said the unconditioned element within the mind of the arahant becomes one with the ultimate unconditioned nature of nibbana. So, as all of you understand, that you have the conditioned phenomena that you see within this mind body, you see in the world, and then you have the unconditioned, which is beyond all cause and effect principle, and is the ultimate emptiness, the ultimate cessation of all phenomena. Was there any points anyone wanted to bring up at all? Okay, so I'll call it quits. And got a few questions. So question 1, Ellen from the USA. I struggle with loving without attachment. How do I move towards that? I'm even having trouble letting go of a dog. Might be a very nice puppy dog, but I struggle with loving without attachment. But essentially, it's a tricky one, because if we're talking about like love, I mean, for the vast majority of us, when we love someone, we're just automatically attached. And when you're talking about pure love, really pure love, without attachment, essentially it's got to come from incredibly profound meditation or the state of a enlightened person, because in order to, say for example with Ajahn Chah, he really hammered his monks on a regular basis. He made them very, very strong. Many of his core disciples are still practicing in the present. Whoever made it, whoever made it past the day he died, quite a few of them are still in robes. Everything which came after that point was just a breeze. But when you're looking at a sense of like pure love, at its most profound level, it doesn't attach. If you say I love you with the most purest of feelings or intentions, that means that you're not attached to that person. You're not expecting absolutely anything from that person, whatever it is on the relationship level. And you're totally committed for that person's welfare. There's no self-interest whatsoever, and virtually impossible for the average person. It's possible for especially for mothers with children. That's probably about as close as you get. That very for the average person, very, very selfless state of devotion, love and care for their children. And I saw this. I did one funeral where, and this is the parents were just really impressive. They had a disabled daughter. The little girl was when she was born, she looked completely normal. Her reflexes and her responses were quite appropriate. And then after the third day, the little girl started behaving quite. Her behaviour was a little bit abnormal. She was a bit floppy and something wrong, And Mum and Dad took her to a specialist, and she had this rare condition which led to what would you call it? A state of being. It's called just physical and mental retardation at a very young, at the stage of within the babyhood stage, and there was no real improvement in the condition. And Mum and Dad, just nursed and cared for that child till the day she died, and she died at age 15. And the parents, I've never seen anything like this. Full commitment, 24 hours a day. Even things like they didn't allow the child's disability to even slow them down. They went on tour. They had a big. The guy was working in the mining fraternity, and his wife was Thai, and they went travelling, and they went to Ayers Rock, and they went to Queensland, and they went across to Nullarbor, and they did this on numerous occasions. And they had the little girl in the wheelchair, and because she had respiratory difficulties, they had oxygen tanks, and they had medical equipment, and Mum, even if the child went into respiratory arrest, Mum and Dad be on the case within 10-20 seconds, and they knew exactly what to do, to clear the airway, get the child breathing, and they were on call for the 15 years of that child life, and the way that Dad explained it at the funeral, I've just never seen anything like it, and only a mother and father, I think, have got the potential to do something like that, just full commitment for 15 years, rain, hail or shine. So how do I move towards that? So in essence, if you really want to promote that sense of letting go with one's loved ones, with one's pets, one's material possessions, you've got to develop the insight practice. Samadhi is useful up to a point, but its main purpose, the samadhi practice, is to basically get you insight, is to lead to a reduction in the defilements, lead to a reduction in attachment to different things within your experience. And naturally, it's a very, very slow process. Even people practicing monastics, lay disciples, 20, 30 years, and really solid practice every single day on a number of levels. Still attached to their families, still attached to their smartphone, different things, and so as one abbot said, he was like 25 reigns, and one of his young monks was having a bit of a hard time, and said, like, I really don't think I can make it. I'm just so obsessed with food, he said, and I just can't let it go, and I don't know how to work with it, and this and that. And the abbot just laughed. He said, look, I've been attached to ice cream for the last 25 years. He said, give yourself a break and sort of just take it slowly, step by step, because we all, if you develop the path, you move in the right direction, you will get good results. But it does take quite a long time. Most of you, even when you're practicing for a full year, virtually every single person in your family and your friends and the people at work, they will say, almost all of them, that you have changed as a person. You're more patient, you're more tolerant, you're more understanding, you don't get so angry. Virtually vast majority of them will say that if you've been practicing for a full 12 months and doing meditation, developing your foundation principles. That business, the insight practice. If you really want to let go, you've got to work the insight practice in different ways, and you look at the results, look at the cause and effect principle. You can do it on a number of levels in different ways, and then see what the effect is. Whatever tools you're working with, watch the effect and see what actually works for you. Because all of us, we're individuals. Some things work at different times, but not others. Some things work at different stages of your practice, different stages in your life. So question 2, Russell from Hawaii. How does one strengthen and sustain the practice of contemplating suffering and death? So what I would do, I'd be a bit careful with the contemplation of dukkha. I wouldn't go over the top with this one, unless you're emotionally comfortable with it. If you can do this type of practice on a consistent basis, and it doesn't say shake you up emotionally, it doesn't create problems within your family, between you and your friends, because if you develop this kind of attitude within yourself that everything is suffering, everything is just painful, nothing's worth getting involved in, nothing's worth holding on to, you probably won't end up with many friends after maybe 6 to 12 months. It's too negative. If you can do it within yourself, you don't go around telling everyone that life's just an absolute crock and it's just completely miserable. You should, it's probably better, if karma wasn't such a heavy trip, just be better to go out and kill yourself. What I would recommend, if you want to follow that particular line, focusing on suffering and death, keep it internal, and watch it very, very carefully, because even contemplation of death, I can do this one very easily. I can do it for hours on end. It doesn't shake me up very much because I know how to work with it, and I know how to keep it in balance to a major degree. But with the lay disciples, I wouldn't go gung-ho on these type of practices, because you will get aversion come up, you will get unpleasant emotions, and you can get depressed and stuff like that, and it can make you really, really miserable. As we've all seen, we've had a couple of our friends who've taken their lives, and these people were moving in within our Dharma circle, and you think they would know better, and they still go out and take their lives. So as one of the other disciples said, where was these people's insight practice? But unfortunately, these people that we knew personally were completely overwhelmed by their feelings and their moods, and essentially they couldn't see a way out. They thought it was completely hopeless. Couldn't see the light of day, and the only solution was to bump yourself off. So what I would do is I would focus on, if you're really if you really want to get into like hard cookie practices, if you really want to get results in the short, you want to see results in the short term, I would really focus on anicca, changeability and voidness, emptiness. Those two practices are very safe. I do them for hours every day, especially changeability is very good, very user-friendly. You won't get too much trouble with this one. You virtually won't get much trouble with the contemplation of emptiness within your personal experience, but with suffering you've got to be careful because it can take you down, it can take your mood down and make you quite miserable. But with Russell's question, how does one strengthen and sustain the practice of contemplating, say, suffering, as he says, suffering and death? You can experiment with those in different ways, look at what's the effect, but if you get trouble, if these practices give you trouble, just stop right there or just essentially shut it down and then go to the practices which you can do. And the test is you can do those practices absolute minimum, 1 to 2 hours every single day, and you can do it 7 days a week and you don't get shaken up, you don't get major problems, and you see that the underlying factors, the mental factors and the foundation factors are developing with that particular mode of inquiry, that mode of investigation. Question 3 from the USA. How does one find a teacher that is attained in his practice for guidance in this part of the world, in the USA? I'm trying to think now. I don't know of any enlightened teachers in the USA. Not to say that there isn't, but I've never really looked into it. But I think the easiest way is to get in contact with one of the largest of the monastic communities in the USA, Abhayagiri. It's also Ajahn Nisro at Metta Monastery. I'm trying to think of the location. Ajahn Nisro at Metta Monastery, and go San Diego, and the reason being is because the abbots of these monasteries are quite senior as monastics. They've had long experience in Thailand. They have their connections within the Thai and the Western fraternity, monastic fraternity, in the United States. And if anyone had realized enlightenment in the US especially as a monastic, that they would have come to know about it over time, because if the word, especially within the monastic circle, when a person makes the breakthrough, that eventually they tell their friends when they're absolutely sure without no shred of a doubt. Eventually they tell their monastic friends, and the word gets around, usually within the forest fraternity, and then say the different temples and different communities in other parts of the country, because it doesn't happen every day. It's quite a rare occurrence because of the amount of work that you have to put in. For most people, you're looking at several lifetimes. But as I've mentioned before, that even as a human being, if you practice in this life till the day you die, you get at least 20 to 30 years under your belt, and you die with a firm foundation. I can truly believe that a person, and the vast majority of those people are reborn in Devaloka, and you make your intention incredibly firm as soon as you arise in any of the Devaloka realms, above the human realm, the 6 Deva realms, that you establish your practice the moment you arise in that world. And even if you have to segregate yourself from other beings in that world, if you have to live in seclusion, because they're incredibly, the way they explain them, incredibly, say, happy, blissful worlds. They're like dream, they're like dream worlds, fantasy worlds. Where you just you can have anything you want to, and everything. Is just to your heart's delight on any level. But it's just an incredible time span. You just imagine what you could do in the lifespans of these devas run at the highest level. They run into hundreds of thousands of years, and even as I've mentioned this before, even the realm of the 4 great kings, the first Devaloka realm, the full lifespan lifespan is 9.7 million years. So, you just imagine what you can do, on a lower scale, in 5,000 years, 10,000 years of solid practice in those worlds. And, I could truly believe a person could easily break through to Sotapanna with that kind of time frame, Yeah, but I can't think of any other principles. Did anyone have any views, opinions, any comments at all before we finish up? No?